Hi everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher, and today I'm going to be demonstrating the Dorset button and a couple of variations on it. This video is the edited version. For the unedited version, you'll need to go over to my Patreon page, Ariane Zurcher on Patreon. There I have, for all my patrons, a much longer, more in-depth and detailed video that has a couple of added variations that are not on this video. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Grab something to stitch with. Grab a little ring of some kind. It can be plastic or any small ring will work, and a needle, a chenille needle, some thread, and let's stitch a Dorset button together. I'm using this Dorset button ring, and I'm using a straw flower silken pearl. I'm going to go ahead and thread this onto a chenille number 24 needle. I'm not going to put a knot at the end because I'm going to leave a tail here, and I have my thread wrapped around this hand, sort of like this. So the thread's going around and over this hand. I take my needle and I'm going to put it through the plastic ring with the thread laying like this. I'm holding the tail with my thumb and index finger. I pull that needle through and I get that first little ridge. Now, wrapping that thread around so that it's looping over this direction, the thread in, and pulling it tightly. And now I'm going to put the needle through, and I'm going to pull it through. And in this way, I'm going to wrap this whole plastic ring, just like this, while holding the end of the thread and making sure that the wraps encase it. At a certain point, I can clip whatever's remaining off. And you see I'm getting this little ridge here, and that's what I want. As I go around, I just want to make sure that my thread is wrapping around my hand to the right, so that when I pull this thread through, I'm getting that little loop. Like that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and clip this off, this end. There's no reason to have it continue. It's snugly adhered underneath all of these wraps. And as you can see, it's snugly wrapped. It does take a little while, and it takes a lot of thread. So you just have to know that going in, that you're going to end up using quite a bit of thread. The other thing is, it can feel really awkward holding this ring, you know, pulling it around, getting that needle through. I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm going to finish this, wrapping this. And then I'm going to show you how to fill it in the center. This is a traditional, how to do a traditional Dorset button. And then I'll show you how I add French knots. So each time I pass through, I'm pulling that hard. I mean, not enough to break it, but I'm definitely giving it a tug, or a pull, I should say. And I am going to try to squeeze as many of these in as I can, because I don't want there to be any looseness or gaps. All right, so I'm going to keep going. All right, so that's pretty good. So I can go into the next one here just to kind of finish it. Do you see where I'm going? Right in here. I can poke my needle in, pull it through, and now I'm going to scoot this whole ridge so that it goes to the inside of my ring. Now you don't have to do this. You can leave the ridge on the outside. I'm just showing you what a more typical Dorset button looks like. And a typical Dorset button, you push the ridge into the inside like that. So do you see how the ridge is all pushed into the inside here? Wrapping the thread is one of the hardest, I think the hardest part about this. It's the trickiest part, getting those threads to match up because you've got 2 threads for each spoke. But I don't have enough thread here to wrap the whole thing around. So I can do a couple of things. I can tie a little knot at the end here and wrap it and just get that knot so that it's part of the spoke, so when I do the whipped woven, it'll get hidden in there. Or I can end this thread by pulling my needle through this ridge and then bringing a knot up and bringing my thread out again. I'm going to show you that way first. So I have a little knot here. There's my knot. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this around. So there's my 12 to 6 o'clock. There's my 7 to 1 o'clock. There's my 8 to 2 o'clock. Here's my 3 to 9 o'clock. There's my 10 to 4 and 11 to, and my knot is right there on the edge, and I don't want that. So I'm going to have to pull that knot so that it's closer and over here. So there's that. Now I'm going to clip these ends. Okay, I've clipped my ends. I'm going to bring my thread down into the center here. And I want to get these spokes paired up. And the way I do that is I bring that thread down, and now I bring it down the opposite end here, and I'm going to bring it up through here. And there you can see when you look through that all the spokes are paired, right? You have 2 threads for each spoke. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my whipped woven. So my thread's here, I'm going to go back down and the spoke, and now I'm going to come up to this one. I'm going to go back down, and I'm pushing this towards the center. I'm ignoring that there's a knot right there. I'm just going to keep going. Now, unlike a whipped woven, I can't push my needle. I have to sort of stab in, stab out, right? I can't, because I'm going through 2 spokes and I've got this round, hard ring that I'm working around, and it doesn't allow my needle to dip in and come out the other side. So I have to go in, pull my thread through, and come out the other one. And that way it's a little bit laborious compared to just a regular whipped woven, but it's totally doable. And you'll find that the more you do this, the more you practice, the easier it becomes. The first few times it can be hard to get those spokes to match up. They can sort of seem all over the place. And you just have to check your back, make sure you're grabbing the right threads so that you're encasing them when you do that X right in the beginning before you start doing your whipped woven. So I'm coming to the end here, and you can always tell if your center is a little off center, because it becomes clearer that you have more space here than I do over here. But that's okay. You know, I can tweak this, and the way I do that is I just keep going, and when it gets denser, I can push with my needle the threads so that they scoot down a little bit. Now the other thing is that I want to show you how to cover this in French knots. And it's easier to cover it in French knots after you've done an entire whipped woven all the way to the edge, so that you have something to hold the French knots. You can do it if you stop your weaving sort of here and you have just spokes. You can add French knots by going into the ridge and having the French knots sort of sit on top of the spokes, but there's always the danger that they're going to pull down. So the surefire method is to do your entire whipped woven base all the way to the edge, and then do your French knots on top, and there's no way that they're going to disappear on you and slip down into the back. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you some French knots. And basically, you can do them anywhere you want because you've got this solid base here. And so these knots can't go anywhere. So there's my Dorset button with the French knots going all the way around. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave this end back into center. So I've pulled my thread into the center, and I just want to make sure that this is as close to center as I can get it, so that when I adhere it, it's going to be the center like this. So this is with silken pearl on the outside. This is with Def Francis. It's a texture selection, but it's a number 3 weight thread. And then I have the Def Francis done in with little branches and knots. This one is the Oriental linen. This is silken pearl. And this is Oriental linen with little bullion knots. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Maybe this gave you some ideas of what you could do with the basic Dorset button and how you might change it up. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.